In April 2026, a number began circulating in military reports and intelligence briefings. According to recent estimates, total Russian casualties in the war in Ukraine may have reached, or even exceeded, that mark. It is a figure that is almost impossible to comprehend, and yet despite these staggering losses, the reality on the ground tells a very different story. In the span of a month, the front line has shifted by less than 20 square miles. This is not a war of rapid advances or decisive victories. It is a war of attrition, a slow, grinding conflict where progress is measured not in miles, but in meters. 5 years into what was initially described as a special military operation, the battlefield has hardened into something far more complex, a war defined by endurance, by logistics, by the limits of human and industrial capacity. When the conflict began in 2022, expectations were radically different. Analysts predicted rapid outcomes. Instead, the war evolved into one of the most prolonged conflicts in modern European history. By 2026, the battlefield bears little resemblance to its early phases. Trenches stretch across hundreds of kilometers. Fortified positions dominate the landscape. In April 2026, territorial movement slowed to near standstill. In some sectors, gains were measured in meters. This reflects the nature of modern defensive warfare. Layered fortifications, drone surveillance, constant artillery pressure. Breaking through such defenses requires enormous resources. The human and material cost of the war is staggering. Estimates suggest up to 1 million Russian casualties, over 24,000 military vehicles destroyed or damaged. These numbers reflect not just intensity, but sustainability challenges. Modern warfare depends on industrial capacity, and even large economies face limits. The April 2026 battlefield report reveals minimal territorial change, high equipment losses, sustained operational tempo. It is a snapshot of a war that has reached equilibrium, but at enormous cost. Modern warfare is no longer fought solely on the battlefield. It is sustained in factories, supply chains, and industrial networks far from the front lines. In a prolonged conflict like Ukraine, success depends not only on tactics, but on production. Armored vehicles must be replaced. Artillery shells must be manufactured continuously. Logistics systems must operate without interruption. For Russia, this has meant shifting significant portions of its economy toward wartime production. Defense manufacturing has expanded, with factories operating at increased capacity to replenish losses. But industrial output has limits. Equipment losses, including the destruction of tens of thousands of vehicles, place constant pressure on production systems. At the same time, supply constraints, sanctions, and technological gaps complicate replacement efforts. Ukraine, supported by Western partners, faces a similar challenge, balancing immediate battlefield needs with long-term sustainability. In this type of conflict, victory is not just determined by strategy, it is determined by which side can produce, replace, and endure longer. For soldiers, the war is defined by routine: hold position, survive artillery, wait. Russia's approach has shifted toward sustained pressure, incremental advances, resource endurance. Inside Russia, public sentiment is complex. Official messaging emphasizes stability and purpose, but the length of the war introduces fatigue. The Kremlin continues to frame the war as necessary and controlled. Information management plays a key role in maintaining public support. The war's impact extends far beyond Ukraine. Energy markets, military alliances, global security strategies. Beyond the battlefield, the war continues to place immense pressure on civilian populations. Entire communities remain displaced, with millions forced to leave their homes in search of safety. Critical infrastructure, including electricity, water systems, and healthcare facilities, has been repeatedly damaged, disrupting daily life on a massive scale. For those who remain in conflict zones, the reality is constant uncertainty. Access to basic necessities can fluctuate daily. Schools operate intermittently. Healthcare systems face overwhelming demand. Humanitarian organizations continue to provide assistance, but the scale of need remains vast. As the conflict stretches into its 5th year, fatigue is not limited to soldiers or governments. It is deeply felt among civilians, whose lives have been reshaped by prolonged instability. In many ways, the humanitarian impact defines the true cost of the war, extending far beyond the front lines. 5 years in, the war continues. The numbers grow, but the lines barely move. This is the reality of modern attrition warfare. For deeper geopolitical analysis, visit nexusinsight.org. Subscribe.